Former Vice President Joe Biden is mulling a run for the White House. Last night at the University of Pennsylvania, he previewed a potential campaign message.
There's an invisible moral fabric that holds up all societies, including ours. And it's being rended, it's being ripped apart. Basic fundamental values that are shared by all Americans. So it's time to restore America's soul. Remind ourselves who we are.
Biden may be weighing his options, but voters aren't waiting around. A CBS News article out Wednesday finds Democrats are looking elsewhere in this crowded 2020 field. CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns has one of the bylines on that article. She joins me now. Caitlin, thanks so much for being here. Love the article. Really great points. You've been talking to voters on the ground. How do they feel about Joe Biden?
Well, I just got back from South Carolina, where Joe Biden has really deep ties, particularly among African-American voters that we know are going to be so crucial in that South Carolina primary. And I talked to lots of voters and activists who say that they love Joe Biden and they wish that he had run in 2016, but now they have so many other options that they're more interested in. And I also found that a lot of voters had kind of this personal investment in Joe Biden's own legacy, and they were a little bit concerned about him running in a Democratic primary, being damaged by it, and eventually perhaps losing or seeing his career kind of end on a more sour note.
That's
they were really concerned about it.
They sound protective, as if they were parents or something.
Exactly. It was really, really interesting, and it kind of shows how his influence is in the party. I mean, he's been around for so long. My colleague Bo Erickson was in New Hampshire talking to voters, and he heard the same kind of refrain from voters saying, we love Joe Biden, but we love him so much we kind of don't want him to run this time around.
Do you think it's a question of timing? Did he wait a little too long to jump in?
You know, I heard over and over again from voters who were at various campaign events that they really wished he had run against Donald Trump last time around. They feel like he could have been able to beat him and have some crossover support. Now, however, he's not the only one that could bring some of those strengths to this field. They've been pointing to people like perhaps Amy Klobuchar, senator from Minnesota, or even Beto O'Rourke, the former congressman from Texas who's weighing a run, as potential people who could kind of pick up the Biden mantle.
And what sort of political baggage might he be carrying with him that could be problematic if he announces a run?
You know, it's a good question. First, this is a very diverse field with African-American candidates, with lots of women. There is this question that Democrats are thinking, do we really want an older white male to represent us in this time? But
I keep thinking also of the Anita Hill hearings and seeing that video
so
coming
there's
up.
Also some serious policy issues that he would be pressed on. The Anita Hill hearings are a perfect example of kind of how the party has shifted, not just over the past several years, but really over the past year. So kind of can he keep up with where the party is? Also on issues like criminal justice reform, economic issues, and some other things. There is this question of whether he is where the party is at this point.
Right. All right. And of course, also, we've been discussing the relevance of another Democratic contender, Bernie Sanders, who raised an amazing amount of money very, very quickly. How would those two compare if they went head to head?
Well, you know, they face this interesting dynamic where, you know, after 2016, their respective bases thought that they could have had a better shot against Donald Trump. And they were really kind of standing out in those positions. Now, you have several candidates who can or are perceived by voters as presenting the same kind of ideal. So for Joe Biden, we talked about that. But for someone like Bernie Sanders, the idea of supporting Medicare for all or other economic principles is kind of mainstream in the party right now. So are there other candidates that can pick up from where they left off?
Right. And can Sanders stand out there? Now, just going back to Biden quickly, is there any sense of the timeline as to when he may be announcing or saying he's not running?
You know, there are a couple different things to consider. First, you know, he keeps saying that he's going to make a decision at some point. He could, you know, he has a team behind him kind of pretty much ready to go. He's not, isn't this first rodeo. He's done it before. But I have talked to people who say, look, if you're going to do it, just get in so we can see our choices. So the pressure is starting to build.
So, you know, when we look at all the candidates who've already thrown their hat in the ring, I mean, the 2020 field is pretty wide. And, you know, we look at Sanders and Biden, both of them are known entities. And I guess my question to you is, being a known entity this time around, helpful or hurtful?
You know, it could be both. Right now, it doesn't seem to be that helpful because there are all these other candidates who are jumping into the race, who are campaigning in these early states and introducing themselves to voters. And that kind of idea of, newness and novelty really appeals to a lot of people at this stage in the campaign. But it could come, several months from now as we get closer to voting. Maybe they start to think, well, I like the reliable choice at this point. So that's a really big open question. I would note, however, that Bernie Sanders raised $6 million on his first day in this race. So his campaign thinks that that should alleviate some of the concerns about the intensity of his support, something we'll have to keep watching over the next few months.
No doubt that's an impressive haul. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much.
Good to see you.